Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for welcome to today's meeting. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording and providing commentary to proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend the meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed for any footage to be broadcast or published. If any alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking. Thank you. Can I first welcome guests from platform this evening? We have Lisa Fairley, Mark Mill, Linda Colburn and Steve Eves, is that right? And in the back we've got Claire, that's it, fine, welcome. So we'll go on to appointments of substitutes, agenda item 1.
Chair, yes. Karen Lewing is here for Tom Petrosky this evening. Had apologies from Councillor Shafaz Ditter as well.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, do we have any declarations of interest? None recorded. Any public participation?
No.
No, fine. And agenda item number 4, which is minutes of the last meeting. We'll go through them page by page, please. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. No? Can we record them as true as inaccurate, please? Thank you, Julian. Okay, agenda item number 5, annual platform housing group update. I believe we don't need any introduction, so if you want to carry on, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Chair, for the invitation to join you this evening. I'd just like to add as well that Michael Bruce, Director of Platform Hub and Income, has given his apologies for this evening. Okay. So I think the presentation's being loaded. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is just a brief slide to explain that we're currently in the middle of refreshing our corporate strategy. So of course, you will receive a copy of that when it's published. We are doing it in light of the operating environment and strengthening our focus on our customers, which I'll cover further on in the presentation. Next slide, please. You may remember this slide from last year, so just to briefly explain that we have a localities operating model. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. I'm not proposing to go through it in a lot of detail, but it explains how we deliver our operational services to customers at platform. Next slide, please. So into the detail. This year, we've looked very carefully at the way in which we deliver services to customers in Worcester City. And we've actually recruited 3 more neighbourhood officers to manage tenancies solely in Worcester City. So that's a significant increase in our commitment to customers here. We've actually, in the wider scheme, recruited 4 more neighbourhood officers in Worcestershire. Some of you may be very familiar with the very sad death of Sheila Celione, who resided in a Peabody property. We were commissioned by our board to take a look at how we have assurance to make sure that our customers who we've had no interaction with for 12 months or more are safe and well in their homes. So we looked at that and we had 2 elements of it, which was really about what we can do in a reactive way. If customers contact us, to make sure we have professional curiosity and ask the right things. And also to be proactive in the way that we identify those customers that we've had no contact with for 12 months or over. And we worked with our data team to produce, using AI to produce a dashboard. And from that, we've been able to contact all of our silent customers. And we had 10 here in Worcester City who we hadn't had any contact with. And we've had that contact now and they are safe and well. and this is now embedded into our business as usual. So this is an ongoing commitment that we're going to contact all of those customers who haven't been in touch with us. We also were really concerned about those customers whose gas was being capped off because they got external meters. So we wanted to make sure they were safe and well. And we now ensure that if gas supply is removed, that we do a check and make sure we contact them. We keep going to contact them to make sure that they're okay. Obviously, if they've got dependents or health conditions, then we would carry out a tenancy health check and work with the customer to make sure their heating supply is back on. Next slide, please. Community safety. So we have a specialist community safety team. We strengthened that team this year so that they can tackle serious breaches of tenancy, breaches, antisocial behaviour, tenancy fraud and condition of property. So we've got a harmonised ASB procedure. We've invested a lot in training of all of our frontline teams, particularly neighbourhood officers and the community safety team, to make sure that they've got really robust framework and understanding. And we've restructured the team to introduce a new role, which is a role that acts as a proactive triage and contact with our customers. And we've also introduced a community safety apprentice who actually works across this area. And we're really proud of that. It's working with an organisation called Resolve, who are the really the best practice organisation in the sector, and they are supporting us and the apprentice through their apprenticeship journey. We have a target of contacting 100% of complainants within 3 working days, and we're working hard to do that. And we're also capturing ASB satisfaction when we close each case. So we are speaking with those complainants to make sure we get their feedback. In terms of neighbourhood walkabouts, our neighbourhood officers are very visible in their neighbourhoods. They're out there speaking with customers, visiting them in their own homes. We do neighbourhood walkabouts with community stakeholders, customers and colleagues, and they're published on our website if you would like to take a look. We did 56 walkabouts in Worcester City in the last year. Next slide, please. So moving on to customer and community engagement. Again, this slide is familiar. I'm not proposing to go through it in a lot of detail, but it gives you a picture of the services and the way in which we liaise with our involved customers and work with our involved customers across our communities. Next slide, please. So one of the things that is really important to Platform is hearing the voice of our customers. And we have got a whole range of involved roles that people are involved in across the business, and also many people who live here in Worcester City. And we have strengthened our strategic involvement panel, which we're launching at the moment. We're going to deliver a conference for all of our involved customers at a strategic level in September. And this slide just gives you an overview of the structure. So we've got the customer voice panel, and you can see there the role that they have, which is very strategic. There's a direct link to board. They have a lot of contact with our group board, who are very interested in speaking to customers who are involved at all levels, but particularly strategically. And under that, we've introduced 2 new service panels, and these are brand new because we knew that we weren't really giving our customers sufficient time to really challenge us and carry out scrutiny of the services that we deliver and work together to make sure that feedback is included in the work that we do. So we've got a customer service panel that's got a strong focus on customers, and there is listed some of the elements of that panel that they'll focus on. And we've got an assets and sustainability service panel, which is really all things around sustainability, repairs, asset management, development and growth. And we've got underneath some information about the membership and how frequently we report. We've also got the scrutiny panel on the far right. We have a very proactive, robust scrutiny panel. We have 15 customers on that. They're very well trained and they hold us to account. They're currently looking at starting a piece of work on our complaints process. They've done mutual exchanges, they've done our repairs process, and we have adopted all of their feedback and made sure that our procedures are amended to reflect that. Next slide, please. So our customer and community engagement activity, we are very proactive in Worcester City. You can see just a sample of the things that our engagement officer does within the city. Is very well known and has his fingers in lots of pie, shall we say. You can see there, but just to pull out, 136 face-to-face drop-in sessions at 5 locations. 10 new projects have been initiated, with lots of other events as well, free community events, often in partnership with a plethora of community stakeholders, both voluntary and statutory. We've also got 100 involved customers in Worcester, and we've got one member who is on our customer experience panel, soon to be customer voice panel. We've got 4 members of the 15 that are on our scrutiny panel, so a strong voice for Worcester City customers, and 23 community champions. And the community champions are roles who are proactive in their communities. They're eyes and ears on behalf of other customers who feed back to us about the quality of the services we deliver, highlighting any concerns that they've got. Also, we have our platform Community Chest. This is a fund of £150,000 that is distributed across our localities. And as you can see, Worcester has received a huge amount of benefit from that, almost a third, with 43 projects in the last 15 months supported for the city. Next slide, please. So customer support, as you know, we have our wellbeing fund. We have 1.75 million in the pot this year to distribute across our communities at Platform. It's much needed. We know that our customers are really struggling with the cost of living crisis. What's important to them is their energy bill and their food bill and replacement of white goods. We don't want them to go to high interest rate organisations. So we're really are, out there. We get a lot of applications. We've also beefed up our team to cope with the additional requests, and we've had to change some of the criteria, but this slide just gives you an overview of the support that Worcester customers have had. So you can see overall for 22-23 there was 1,206 awards, and a total value of nearly 300,000 that was awarded, and an average award of 245. This year so far, from April to June, there's been 153 awards in Worcester, and nearly £32,000, with an average award of 209. We've also supported our customers to make sure they're maximising their income, and we've had a lot of referrals come in to our successful tenancies team, who are constantly working with customers to make sure they're getting access to all the money that they need, as well as some donations that have gone in. So it's tough out there for our customers, and we're doing everything we can to support our customers. And I'm personally not aware of anybody, any organisation that's got that kind of size of wellbeing fund. Moving on, please. The Platform Hub. So as you know from Michael speaking about this last year, it's a multi-channel contact centre, and we have changed some of the contact options this year. We've got live chat, also for those customers that want to engage with that, but we have got an omni-channel approach to the way in which people can contact us. We have a number of options available. We do offer a 60-minute callback service, which I know Michael talked about last year. It's very popular, but so is increasingly the chatbot as well that we are using. So you can see the headlines from April to June. So we do have a lot of contacts. Over 36,000 calls were answered. Over 43,000 enquiries managed via digital. So that clearly is something that's growing for our customers. They feel confident in contacting us in that way. And 80% of all contacts managed were in service charge timescales. We know we've got work to do, and we are beefing up our team to do that. We're also looking at the way in which our telephony is working, and we're introducing a new customer relationship manager to make sure that we are ever active in looking at ways in which we can ensure that our customers get the service that they need. Moving on, please. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Mark now to cover the repairs.
Thanks, Lisa. Just to obviously cover some of the key points for repairs for the first quarter, so that's April the 1st to the 30th of June. So 12,000, just over 12,000 repairs delivered so far this year based on that period. And just wanted to give you a bit of a context of what we're working with at the moment. So availability of suitable operatives. So there's a skill shortage in the sector, and so actually attracting the right quality of workforce to our business is absolutely key, and we're doing a huge amount of recruitment in the area at the moment. Ageing workforce, so we're looking at our workforce profiling going forward to make sure that we've got the right skill sets going forward to drive the business, and obviously outside of the sector, just things like Brexit, where it's driving up increased costs across our business. So increasing costs of materials is one of the challenges, but we do mitigate that really well. We have long-term relationships with a lot of our material partners, and we have already reviewed all of those this year, and we have actually reduced some of the costs of our material delivery over this year. Availability of materials, we're not seeing an issue at the moment, but that is an ever-changing picture for us, and we monitor that on a month-by-month basis. And then failing contractors, we do use a number of contractors outside of our in-house delivery, and from that we are seeing some contractors feeling a bit of the pain of the current environment, and some of them have gone into administration. Tomlinson's is one of the most recent ones that we use for our kitchen and bathroom programmes. Complaints, when you think about the 12,000 repairs delivered today, 36 complaints so far based on that 12,000, which is 0.29% of our total repair delivery. The next slide, please. Yeah. It's not specifically talks about the 7 locality, but we can get that figure to break it down. So Q1, just obviously continuation. Customer satisfaction is absolutely key to us. Our customers and the service we deliver is absolutely paramount to our organisation. 70% of our customers absolutely say the repair service is the most important service we offer. So generally, 88.3% satisfaction across our colleagues, and that is Worcester. And customer satisfaction for gas servicing and gas repair is at 96%. So our customers are feeding back. Our target for customer satisfaction for all repairs is 92. So we are below our target, but we are confident we will reach that by the end of this financial year. Just a word cloud on what customers are saying. We have a very good system that records all of our customer contacts. And as you can see, in the repairs one, 1,588 customers were surveyed. 494 responded, which is a 30% return rate, which gives us a really good statistical view of our organisation. Next slide, please. More the same, just performance. One of the key things and the key drivers from a complaints perspective is the length of time to deliver repairs. And over a period of time, we have had a much higher number of days, but we are trending downwards. Our target is to hit 12 days average time for a customer to wait for a repair by the end of March 2024. Currently, we're at 26 days, but as we said before, we're trending in the right direction. Right first time is absolutely key. One of the things our customers value the most is they just contact us, ask us to do a repair, and we turn up and deliver that repair. So 91% right first time delivery. So when we're just doing it in that one visit. And just some stats on just grounds maintenance. We cover over 1 million square metres of grass across the 7 locality. I can get you a breakdown of just the Worcester area, but we cut that every 12 days with our team of in-house delivery. So absolutely the first impressions of some of our localities in our communities is going to be our green spaces. So we absolutely value keeping on top of that. So if I pass over to Linda.
Thanks, Mark. This is just to confirm what our investment and replacement programme looks like this year. The advantage here is that most of that, with the exception of the drainage and lift replacement, will be completed by our in-house contractor. And we find that that provides us with a better quality product and a better experience for the customer. We're obviously working with our third-party contractors to try and emulate that, but that is absolutely nailed on for the Worcester area. Next slide, please. Just to let you know of a major project that's going on, and I know that some of you have been in support of this in terms of our consultation with local customers. As part of our damp and mould project, we investigated some damp and mould here and found that that had been caused by the soil stack at the back of the bathroom. So we are replacing the soil stacks in the 3 blocks at Cripplegate. That's underway now. Seems to be going okay. I think I'll leave that there. Just to let you know what we did, I know we wrote to you when the damp and mould issues hit the headlines with the Ishak OL case. We had benefited from the spotlight report by the Ombudsman some months earlier, and we'd already reviewed our policy as a consequence of that. What we hadn't done is publish it. When that hit, we re-engaged with customers. We reanalyzed everything that we put on our website, every bit of leaflet, the information that we send out. We retrained all of our frontline staff in understanding damp and condensation mould. And as a consequence, we got some fantastic feedback from our engaged customers. They were really great, and they gave us some amazing tips in making that understandable and immediate. And I would recommend any householder go on the website to look at some of the guidance on that. Obviously, as a consequence of that, we had a significant influx of damp and mould cases, and we are working our way through those now. Everyone will be investigated and dealt with. Our commitment is to get that sorted before winter comes, because there will be another obvious spike in that at that point. But this is just to let you know what we did as a consequence of that, and what we are still engaging in at the moment. And as I say, we've written to all local authorities on that. Thank you. Oh, that slipped. Right, okay. Yeah. Next slide, please. This is just to let you know what the portfolio within Worcester looks like. Most of the homes that we have within Worcester are at C and above, SAP C and above. We've still got a significant number at D, but what we understand is it's going to take very little to get them from D to C. And in the core, we believe we can do that in the course of one investment intervention. So it's not a huge hill to climb. Because our retrofit strategy around all of the grant funding that we're taking is a worst first approach, low regret, fabric first if we can. The 25E and 2F are likely to fall within the SHDF funding that we've won from Maze. But our existing performance of the stock in Worcester isn't bad at 72. Next slide, please. And that's just to give you an indication. I don't think there's anything statistically significant there in terms of where our poor and performing and better performing properties are, but it gives you a breakdown of them. Next slide. This is to, I suppose, let you know what you got for your money in terms of the Green Homes Grant, because this was something that we did with Worcester. The green on the left-hand side is the properties before we did the retrofit that was funded by that Green Homes Grant. And on the right-hand side is the performance post that intervention, those works. We can give you what that actually means in bills for customers if you like, but that I think is a great outcome for the grant that was invested there. Next slide, please. We are finding that we have got the fuel crisis is causing a real problem for our older customers. They obviously have a fixed income and no means of really increasing that. So we're finding that in schemes, the utilities cost that we are just passing through, we're not making any profit out of it, is causing real pain for our customers there. So what we're trying to do is to do proactive energy audits on all of our schemes so that we can identify retrofit interventions and sometimes talk to the customers about change of heating and how we might change the time that the heating's on and the temperature that it's set at, things like that. to try and improve their bills and make it livable, more livable for them. Some of those are minor interventions. You know, we're talking about TRVs and things like that. We've got building management systems in some of these properties, so we can, you know, remotely adjust the heating. Some of them will be a complete replacement of the heating system because it's old and it's not performing well. But we will have a plan in place before the end of this financial year for all of our schemes. But the 3 that we've highlighted there, they've already been undertaken, and we will be doing that work this year.
Over to me. My name's Steve Eves. I'm the Regeneration Director at Platform. Thank you for the invite today. So I just want to mention, in terms of development, Platform has got 4 schemes that are being built at this moment in Worcester. I'm quite proud to say that approximately half of those homes are social rent, which is kind of it truly is an affordable product. And the rest of the homes are affordable rent and shared ownership, which is great. It does bring much valued affordable housing into Worcester itself. In terms of the green agenda, obviously carbon reduction is absolutely critical at the moment. We see the impacts happening all over Europe. I just want to give you a quick explanation of some of the things that we're doing. So we have what's called a platform standard for all of our new homes now, and that is essentially to reduce our carbon emissions. So we're on a journey, like a lot of organisations, to reduce our emissions. First thing we're doing is we now have a gas-free specification. So for homes that we build, not that we acquire off private developers, but homes that we build will be gas-free. We also go for fabric-first approach because it's great having technology in homes, but when that breaks down, that's a problem. So we want to make sure our homes are really warm, they're really airtight, and they're nice, healthy places to live in. We're installing photovoltaic panels to create electricity for our residents, air source heat pumps, and we're using new smart technology, switchy technology. And that's technology that helps tell us if there's problems in the house, if the damp's deteriorating, if the house is too cold, if there are repairs required, that kind of thing as well. And we're also doing a pilot on Zero Bills House. So customers who move into our homes, the plan is actually they don't actually have any bills to pay because those houses are so energy efficient. Next slide, please. We don't just do development, we kind of do other things as well, regeneration. And we're working again with the council on our local authority housing fund, LAHF, and it's a great program. It's actually to provide homes for Ukrainian and Afghan refugees. And so we're in regular contact. We're trying to move fast, and we've got to try and buy some homes. And we're going to look at buying them off the open market, brand new homes in high quality developments, so we can rehouse Ukrainians and Afghan refugees. We have done that in one other local authority at the moment, and we are very much pushing this forward very quickly. Next slide, please. Just a couple of other things, very high level. We are working with the council and with some of our residents on improvements, particularly to the Hot Market block of apartments in Worcester. And obviously it's just around the corner. There's a big regeneration quarter there around Angel Street as well. So that's a real focus for us. It might take a few years to do. These things never happen quick, but we are committed to that. And obviously we're also involved with the St Paul's Homeless Persons Hostel as well. Homelessness is just an issue. It's getting worse and worse. And obviously we would like to do our bit and actually help increase and improve the provision of homelessness accommodation in Worcester as well. There is a supplement with some more pictures on developments, but we won't go into that. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those reports. I'll open it up to the floor. I'll take Councillor Hannah Cooper, Councillor Lawrenson, Councillor De Serra and Councillor Ali. And Councillor Lawrence. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start off by praising your Community Engagement Officer. I've only had amazing encounters with him. One of your properties doesn't have an EPC, and one of your customers is in her 90s. She's got really cold windows, really drafty. She's spoken to the warden. Nothing's happened. My concern is what is happening with properties without an EPC or expired EPCs, that you don't have any information about those properties.
A very, very clever piece of software that allows us to load all the data we have on our properties. So that is absolute EPC data, but it's also the age, location, all of the characteristics of or archetypes of that property. And that allows us to have a figure for all our properties. It may not be from an actual EPC, but it will be using that data and the algorithms within the software to predict what that is. So if it is a F or G or whatever, we will know it is, and it will be on a list. I mean, I'm quite happy to take that address from you and make sure that I can tell you when we're going to be doing that work, because we absolutely are taking the worst first.
Okay, Councillor Lawrenson.
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, an observation, and you did acknowledge that you're looking to recruit more staff to deal with the target that you're currently aiming towards. So that's 81% of queries responded to within the time that you've set yourselves. Personally, I think 81% is quite low, but you implicitly acknowledge that, and you're working on it by recruiting more staff to deal with those queries. And an average wait time for telephone calls 14 minutes. I mean, I'm probably embarrassing myself because, for all I know, Worcester City Council has a longer waiting time. But I would encourage you to keep investing in more staff, because 14 minutes waiting for help is quite a long time, and 81%, yeah, it's a long way to go. I'm interested in the question I have within all of this ramble is about the harmonised antisocial behaviour procedure. Before I invite you to answer, clarify what that is, I'd just like to read from a historical email from a resident in Gregory's Bank about platform properties and antisocial behaviour. There's an email from a resident, it's this: we have ongoing issues with platform housing tenants. We're quite fearful of retribution. We're actually told by a PCSO when referencing one house not to let them know where you live. This has caused us considerable concern regarding both our personal safety and that of our properties. We've documented drug use, drug dealing via 101, but the PCSO has just advised us the records weren't passed on. With regards to antisocial behaviour, the noise is regular and ongoing. Some houses have blatantly held social gatherings until the early hours, and this was during lockdown. But I imagine some of those issues that I've just read, told you about now, are ongoing. So that's a bit of context. Come back to the original question. What is the harmonised antisocial behaviour procedure that, in a nutshell, that platform has? Is it something that you can share with councillors? And is it something that's easily digestible within the residential community, so they are assured that platform have been proactive about antisocial behaviour?
I can take that. Thank you for raising that. The harmonised procedure it's just one way of doing things across the whole of our organisation, given that we were two legacy organisations, and that was formed with the community safety team, so a specialist team of people who can deal with some serious cases of antisocial behaviour. And I think I referenced that we'd had a lot of investment to our neighbourhood officers. We'd introduced the new localities operations coordinators, who are very proactive in making sure that any complainants are kept up to date. So yes, we can share that with you. And I want to assure you that, as soon as a complaint comes in, we are on it and we are contacting those people. We are interviewing them. We are checking to make sure that they are safe and well. We work with all of our community stakeholders, the police, community safety teams within local authorities, PCSOs, a whole plethora of people, in order to triage and understand what's happening, gather information and take legal enforcement action if there's sufficient information and proof. Our primary concern is to support our customers, because often, as you've said, they are fearful of retribution, and there's lots of things that we can do to try and make sure that they are protected in that process. I hope that gives you some reassurance, but happy to talk to you outside of the meeting as well if you would like to do that, or arrange a meeting afterwards.
Yeah, go on, Councillor Lawrenson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for that offer. I'm not going to spotlight it on even further. I realise I've been quite negative there. I mean, clearly we're talking about a tiny minority of people. But that said, these concerns have been mentioned to me over a period of several years. And yeah, we can catch up later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, just to back that point up, Councillor Lawrenson, I mean, it's not an easy process. I mean, in terms of getting action on a particular individual or set of individuals in terms of that causing nuisance, the evidence that you have to build up, and then the authorities that you have to work with, and to get it through to the court stage and then the eviction stage, it's not a short process, and it's a terribly painful time for both, obviously, the residents that are affected by it, and obviously those that are living in the neighbourhood as well. So I think what you're trying to say is that actually, as long as those residents' concerns are being listened to and addressed, and the proper procedures are being followed, then that you've done everything in your power to ensure that those issues are being resolved. Thank you.
Can I just add as well, just to give you extra reassurance, we do internal audits of safeguarding, antisocial behaviour, domestic abuse cases every month, because we're checking it against the policy and the procedure to make sure that our officers are following that. It's really important that they do. And then if there are any learning outcomes from that, we obviously talk through to people. If we need to see any trend analysis, then we'll talk to people as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more reassurance that we're sense checking it ourselves.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 things I'd like to raise just quickly. First one, if there was one way in which you could improve how the residents in my area view platform and their contact with you, it would be to do that really old-fashioned thing and reinstate the local office. Now, I'm sure there's no prospects of it on the horizon, but I'd just like to mention it because I tell you it would be go down a storm, and they really miss it. There's probably some of your, longer-term tenants who remember when you had one, but nevertheless, I think to have that locally manned office within a reasonable distance might actually get around a lot of other issues and frustrations that come out of being on the phone or online or doing video calls to raise issues and maintenance things. So just wanted to mention it. So that's the first one. Secondly, so you mentioned about the successful tenancies team. And I have had a number of dealings with people extremely distressed at getting, repeated arrears letters that are increasingly shrill about the penalties that are going to hit them because of their arrears. Why isn't there a process within platform for the successful tenancies team to step in and not send those letters? Because they only seem to stop when somebody else asks for it to stop, or they seem to only get involved when somebody else asks them to do so, perhaps a community officer or maybe me or something.
I can take that. I can't answer for specific scenarios. What I can say is that we have a very we have a process that we work through, and our raison d'etre is to prevent any legal enforcement action against rent arrears at platform. And we do it very, very reluctantly. The only time we would do it is if we were not getting any engagement from those customers, and we would really look at that very carefully before we initiated it. As you say, we've got our successful tenancies team. So if we do enter into dialogue with some of our customers and they say, I'm really struggling, I can't afford to buy food, we then make that referral into the successful tenancies team so that they can then work with that customer to do a review of what is their income and expenditure, have they got any debts, how can we support them in getting those debts cleared. All that kind of work is done at that point. I'm not able to discuss anything that's very specific, and I'd need to understand that, so very happy to talk to you outside of the meeting about any examples that you can give me. Yeah, happy to do that.
Okay, and
Thank
just
you.
finally, fly tipping. What can I say? It's like just worse and worse all the time. I've been trying to get an initiative on my ward where City Council supports platform and other RSLs, but in my ward of Warndon it's mostly platform, to perhaps do a regular sweep, because as soon as you get some fly tipping, something adds to it magically, so if it can be collected very quickly, I think that's to everybody's benefit. I'm not sure where that discussion's got to. It was probably way below your pay grades, I would imagine, but if you could just bear it in mind, there might be a request comes up the line at some point to look at it citywide. Free bulky waste collections is one of the things that we're trying to look at, and if we are going to do that, I think sharing that cost with the social housing provider, all of them, not just yourselves, would probably be on the agenda, yeah?
I just would like to give some context to that. I think we actually met, Claire and I did meet with Lloyd last week to talk about it. And yes, we're very much in agreement that we want to make a contribution to that project and we can see the benefits. But just in particular for your ward, I did have a look at some fly tipping costs. And, you know, in Warndon, for 2022-23, we spent 9,471 just in Warndon in fly tipping costs, with an average spend of 474. We actually spent nearly 76,000 picking up fly tipping across Worcester City in that year. And in the first quarter of this year, we've actually spent more in Warndon. So we spent 10,363, 19 visits to pick up, and we've already spent across the city 57,680. And I would stress that we are not the only stockholder. So for example, in Warndon, we've got, I think we're stockholder, 37% of the stock is owned by Platform there. So I think 983 units of 2,654. So we would absolutely welcome that, because it's so expensive for us to pick up the fly tipping. And I've seen it myself, and, you know, so would really welcome having that. We've delivered a lot of litter picks as well in the area, because we know that it is a, you know, a massive commitment. So I just wanted to give that additional context about the amount of financial spend that Platform have delivered.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the item's coming as a separate item. So if you can keep, if we keep questions, something else, if that's okay. Yeah. Is there anything else, Councillor Sarah? Councillor Ali, then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Is 26 days timescale good for people with faulty boilers and stuff in winter? Just a quick one, thank you.
Yeah, so obviously, where we look at repairs is we look at an average of all repairs. So that is appointed repairs plus emergencies. So anything that impacts the customer, so like faulty boilers where they haven't got heating or hot water, we do deliver that within a 24-hour period. Any other repairs relating to gas boilers or anything on that related to the heating system is delivered within 5 days. And due to the level of satisfaction in there and the feedback that we get, I can give you the breakdown of how we're performing against those specific issues. But yeah, customers aren't waiting 26 days for boiler repairs. It's looking at all repairs at the moment, but we can give you a breakdown.
Okay, Councillor Ali, Councillor Lewin.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, I'm a councillor for the Arboretum ward, and I also want to say a huge thank you to Paul for the work that he's done in the area. I didn't realise what a huge area he covers actually, because I thought he just covered Worcester City, and when I realised he didn't, I was like, good grief, he's a superman. The other thing, in the Arboretum ward, most of our housing is very vulnerable people, elderly and vulnerable people. And one of the things that you were talking about your investment in customer satisfaction and repairs right first time, I think you're absolutely right to focus on that. I've got a resident who hasn't had a shower properly working for 6 years. They have to put a screen up to stop the water escaping into their hallway. And people do come and repair it, but they don't do a proper repair. Yes. They do something, but then they say they'll come back, and then they come back, and they come back, and they come back. So it's that kind of repair, repair right first time. I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. One thing I'm interested in is if you've got a skills shortage, do you have an apprenticeship scheme? Because I'll be really interested how many people in Worcester who would benefit from that, whether it's a focus for our area. And the other thing is, I know that we had something come through that the way to contact you as a city councillor was to use an email address, customerfeedback@platformhg.com. I have to say, I have not had a good response from it. I've had apologies that my emails have been missed. I haven't had responses, and some of them have been emails about particular issues and concerns for particular residents. It could be that you've addressed it, but I don't know. So I just want to know if that email is the way to contact you, or whether we could have a more local contact, perhaps, that we could have for our area. And finally, I'm sorry this is a bit long, I'm really pleased that you are using gas-free specification. That is hugely important for the future of your housing. And I'm really pleased that you're focusing on the EPCs. Obviously, I sit on chair of the Environment Committee, and we've just asked for them to do a new map of the city to show where our housing stock is. It's really important. It's a huge percentage of the carbon of our city. And if we're trying to get to carbon zero, we need people like you with such a big housing stock to be on board. So thank you for that work. And the other thing is, I also sit on the Hot Market Trustee Board, and I know what condition those flats are in. So can I please hurry you with working on those, because that would be a great addition. Thank you.
I can just come in on the contact. First of all, I'd like to offer my apologies for the service that you've had. That's not at all what we would want. So I would like to talk to you outside of the meeting, if that's okay, just to catch up on those issues and make sure that we get those resolved, and also confirm how you can contact us.
I think it's just obviously the customer that you're talking about with the shower. Yeah, if I could catch up with you after and get the details of that, then we can follow that up. In regard to apprenticeships, as an organisation, we are aiming to get 10% of our total workforce in apprenticeships. So we have a very successful programme within property care. We're probably the leader in platform. I think 6.7% of our workforce is in apprenticeships at the moment. We advertise those very locally in the Worcester area, but we've obviously got a larger footprint outside of that. So I think we've got 49 apprentices in our business at this present moment in time, but I can give you a breakdown of how many apprentices are actually in Worcester City. But we are very successful when we advertise, and we do get inundated with apprenticeships applications. So I think after we had 9 positions last year, and I think we had over 1,000 applications for them. I think part of the apprenticeships is to absolutely value our apprenticeships, but it's about making sure that we are absolutely supporting those apprentices through our business, and it's making sure that we've got the right mentors in place to support that. Without the right mentors, we're not going to give that apprentice a really good experience. So that's probably subduing our drive, but absolutely from a skill shortage perspective, growing our own talent in our organisation is key.
Can I just add to that? Because obviously the future that we're heading to at the moment, we've got funding for the best part of 1,000 retrofit solutions from the SHDF funding. We are going to have 2,000 a year up until 2030 in order to do that. So Mark and I talk incessantly about this problem. We have to grow our own talent. We have to create our own apprentices in that area. So, we've got a partnership with the Retrofit Academy to train our own guys, because my guys need to be trained in retrofit and understanding how not to mess about with a house. We've got to do retrofit properly, because you can cause problems if you do it wrong. But part of that initiative is growing the workforce over time so that we can have our own in-house experts on ground source and air source heat pumps. I mean, Mark's guys already do air source heat pumps better than any contractor out there, but we want them to be just as expert in ground source heat pumps and PV and all of the retrofit side of things. So it's absolutely where we're heading. We need to just create that apprentice program. Just on the shower issue, I am very interested in understanding where we've gone wrong there. But part of our initiative is getting that predictive analytics side right, because we do this. Every now and again we come across where we've been and we think, oh my God, we've been 6 times here and we haven't sorted it. We're looking at the data on that. We've got a great predictive analytics function. I mean, Lisa's referred to the silent customer dashboard. We want a similar thing for customers that actually do shout, but aren't necessarily sorted out right first time, so that we can understand where those lingering problems are and get involved in it. Very much around leaks, damp and mold. There is some sticky issues around there, so we are trying to address that through our data.
I'd just like to add as well that we're very committed to the green agenda as an organisation. So our Chief Executive, Elizabeth Froud, also chairs the National Housing Federation's Sustainability Committee. And from a development perspective, we also use modern methods of construction in many of our new developments now. And clearly, we want to be a very green and carbon-free developer of new homes.
Thank you. I've got 3 more speakers, then I'll sum up. I've got Councillor Lawrence, Amos and Lamb.
Thank you, Chair. One of my residents has contacted me and she says that she's been waiting for 4 years for work done on her house and has now only got that scheduled because she's gone to a solicitor. So she's had to go to the expense of going to a solicitor to get some work done, and I think that's quite unreasonable. So I was wondering if you've got any response on that's number 1.
My team's responsible for disrepair, if that is what we're talking about. There's no way someone should have to go to a solicitor in order to get a service that they're entitled to get. So I'll be very interested in the details behind that. Obviously, our team does record all of our disrepair and takes them through, and where we can, try to settle them honourably without those solicitors being involved. We've had some horrendous cases of customers agreeing compensation and having 80% of it taken away from them by that solicitor. And if we're going to give some compensation justifiably because we did something wrong, we want it to go into the pocket of the customer, not the pocket of a solicitor. So I personally have settled a number of cases out of that legal side of things. We do behave honourably. We are here to serve our customers. We're not here to just not give them what they deserve.
I think part of the problem is there's a lot of bombardment on this claim thing, and I don't think I think you really need to get. If people contact me, I urge them not to do that. But and there are methods, there are organisations that are voluntary organisations that will help you, like CAB and Onside, and I would ask people to speak to those people first to check the validity of what they're doing, but also to contact the housing association. So I'm quite pleased to hear that, but I was quite shocked when she said she'd have to go to a private solicitor. I'll talk to you.
I was going to say it would be really good to see that particular case and understand that. I think from our perspective, what we would always say to our customers is speak to us, go through our internal processes so we can absolutely properly ratify and understand that before going to a solicitor.
And the next one is we have a site around the corner from where I live, actually, which is Harvester site, which is coming up at planning tomorrow, and that as a care home. But should an opportunity like that come up, are you interested in building affordable homes? It would be nice to know that you want to do that sort of thing in the area. We could really do some housing stock as well.
Yeah, we've got a very large development programme. So our target is to complete 1,600 new homes, affordable homes each year. Always interested in opportunities. So very happy for you. I'll give you my contact details. Please feel free to come to me. So.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Amos.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for your presentation. My simple point is about the process for dealing with complaints. I think I must be your 0.29%. I won't bore you with the details, but it was a lady came to me, well, a constituent. I don't get many housing complaints, but when I do get them, they're inevitably complicated. They'll be going on for a long time. That's why they've come to me. But what the problem was in my dealing with it was a lack of a contact person at platform. I went round and round the houses literally to find the name of somebody who had been dealing with it. And in the good old days, I think it's Councillor Desara was saying, we had named officers in the housing association. You could pick up the phone and quite remarkably sort something out. But that didn't seem to exist. I did eventually get the name of somebody who ended up dealing with the complaint, but that wasn't a dedicated officer. It was just somebody who happened to be at the rough end of having to deal with this complaint. And all it was a kitchen repair. But there was nobody to trace it back to why hadn't this happened, why hadn't that happened. So basically it was a constituent not getting a satisfactory service or not getting a service at all. I then spent an inordinate amount of time just trying to find somebody to take it up and deal with it direct. And I was a bit bothered by that. I say I don't get many, but when I do, they're disproportionately complicated. So would it not be possible to have, because obviously the City Council has housing responsibilities, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to have officers who in particular would deal with councillor complaints, because like it or not, residents will come to us when they've given up hope. And the other problem is, and it's not your problem, it's a fact, that as the housing associations become bigger, they become more anonymous and they lose touch with their tenants. And that is a huge problem. I'm looking now back to Worcester Community Housing in Warndon days. But the contact was there and things were dealt with more quickly. I'm not saying they didn't make mistakes and complaints weren't made, of course, but the process of sorting them out was quicker and simpler than it is today.
I can answer that. So first of all, we do have a customer feedback team who manage all of our complaints, and what they do is they acknowledge them, they coordinate the responses and make sure that the counter enquiries, which we get a lot of, which are usually requests for services you've just explained, and they anchor that process down, because we work within a strict framework delivered by the Housing Ombudsman. There is that presentation that just explains that. So I'm sorry that you experienced that particular incident, and I'd be interested to understand that better. As a councillor, we're connected with our neighbourhood officers are connected with councillors, so we can give you a point of contact if you need to access that. I know Councillor Desiree's you have your regular meetings, don't you, with Joe and some other people as well, and that's been offered out more widely, but I'd be particularly interested in that particular case just to understand what went wrong there, because our customer feedback team do manage, lots and lots of enquiries, MP inquiries, complaint management, and we've got a very clear published process on our website. So I'll, talk to you about that outside of the meeting, if that's all right.
Thank you. Perhaps if you've given me your home telephone number, that will solve the problem.
Looks like you're going to be here for a couple of hours afterwards, aren't you?
Pardon?
It looks like you're going to be here for a couple of hours, catching.
Possibly.
Got Councillor Lamb and then Councillor Cooper, and that's it. I'll sum up then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've sort of linked in, credit where credit's due, and linked in with Joe Kelly. I just want to say, I think Joe Kelly works really well, actually. The St John's team meet with her on a regular basis. We're meeting with her tomorrow. We find that she's very good. We give her a list of complaints and a list of issues, a list of concerns, and she goes through them and feeds back to us. So I think that works really well. And I do think, I have to say, Platform I find have become more responsive since your last visit a year ago. And in St John's, the two big sort of platform related issues, I think, are obviously the high rises and what's going on there with the replacement of the pipes and the stacks, and Platform Housing representatives came and made the effort of explaining to residents who are obviously always very concerned about sort of big changes, and there were lots of rumours flying around. There were rumours flying around that all three high rises were going to have to be, everyone was going to have to be moved out. And that wasn't true, and it was great that Platform came along to explain that clearly, the process and how it was going to be done. And obviously also Platform Housing representatives came along to Russell House as well. There was obviously a lot of concerns there, a lot of very vocal residents who were very concerned about the heating charges and the service charges as well. And again, you came along to a public meeting, and public meetings are always very difficult to deal with because people's passions are often very high, but people who came along made the effort to actually explain very, very clearly what the reasons were and the movements taking forward. So I suppose what I'd really like to know is just you touched them in your presentation, just a very brief sort of update on how's it going with the high rises and obviously the replacements of all the piping and the stacks, and has any progress been made in Russell House about these energy saving measures, which in particular were about the communal areas, because one of the issues was raised. And whenever we go canvassing in Russell House, I always have to sort of wear just a shirt because it's always so warm in there, and residents sort of saying, well, hang on, we can never turn the radiators down. They can control the heating in their own flats, but they can't control the heating in the communal areas, which are often very, very warm. And I can sort of see where they're coming from if they're being charged for those communal areas, which are, which they can't control. So what's the progress being made on those? Because you do sort of touch on it.
Can I just, before you answer that, I mean, obviously follow up on that. I mean, that is a big concern to some of the residents living in those communal areas, is that actually they're being hammered with charges that they feel they shouldn't be. And, and I think one of the examples given was £46,000 worth of maintenance charges on heat. That's not over on top of obviously what they were paying for in terms of that, and how you can justify that in terms of that. So the heating of communal areas is a significant cost which is being added on as a maintenance charge to tenants, and how can you justify that figure?
What I'd like to say about that is everybody's had a copy of the FAQs, so hopefully that gives you some clarity around the heating systems. I would like to stress we're only passing on to our customers charges that we are being billed for. But very happy. I can't discuss specifics because, as you probably know from those members that have visited those schemes and been at those meetings, they are very scheme specific, the issues there. So what I can say is that we are working very hard to look at what we can do to alleviate that high cost of energy, and it is starting to come down, but we know we've got work to do, which Linda has referenced, and I'm no doubt she'll pick up in a second. But very happy to speak to people at the meeting, and I know, for example, Councillor Lamb, you've got those connections there with the people that were at those meetings, and we wanted to make that commitment. We felt it was really important to go and meet with our customers and listen to their feedback.
Okay, finally we have Councillor Cooper. Okay, do you want to come?
In terms of an update on Cripplegate and on Russell House, right? Forgive me, I should have got a detailed brief for you in terms of Cripplegate, but as far as I'm aware, that is going very well. I'll give you a brief on that as soon as I get back to the office tomorrow morning. Russell House, we will do all of the TRV work, all of the quick intervention and adjustment of boiler works to be done on Russell that will reduce that call on the boiler and reduce the cost of producing that energy. There's other more wide-ranging work that we're going to have to do in that. I haven't had the boiler report, because it may be that we have to actually replace the boiler. I haven't had that report back. But we'll do all of the low-hanging fruit immediately. There's no difficulty there. So what I'll do is I'll come back with a schedule of what we're doing and when on Russell House, so that you can confirm whether you're happy with that or not.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't here for the last time you presented. I wasn't elected then. I just wondered what your date for net zero was, please.
At the moment, we are going with the prescribed timescale. So EPCC 2030 and net zero 2050.
Okay, thank you. So are there any? Oh, it's fine. I think most of us are speaking. Well, can I thank you for obviously coming here? I'm going to sum up for a few things. I mean, there's a few common themes that have kind of arisen from tonight. Obviously, those nitty-gritty problems still are there. The issue of communication seems to be a big one. I think the end of last meeting that we had, you kindly passed around a set of contacts, but the contacts only were emails. We didn't have any direct numbers to kind of refer them to. If we can get that addressed in terms of key contacts that we can get through to people, I think that will satisfy a lot of members' concerns, especially if the email systems aren't working as they should. Clearly, there's been some progress made from what you've done last year, what you presented last year. You've recognised some of the issues there. You've employed more staff. You're working slightly differently, so the effort, the intent is there to improve. I still fear that it might be the tip of the iceberg in terms of the awareness that's been created in terms of responsibility in that, and it will be interesting to see how we go for when you come back next year in terms of progress that has been made. But obviously progress has been made. So, you know, as my colleagues have said, there's credit where that credit's due. I think from an overall perspective, there's one thing that you didn't mention that you did, which are your commitment with Councillor Petrowski and the Remembering Srebrenica event. I think that's a really, really poignant amount, and you know, I'd like to personally thank you for your backing what you've done there for the last 4 or 5 years. I think that's been a fantastic commitment to in terms of something that's really, really taken off within the city. So, you know, thank you for that. What I was more interested in is obviously some of the skills gap that we've got, and actually what a platform as a organisation contribute to the local economy, and how we can keep more of that money within the local economy. Appreciate not all of your you know, equipment that you need and the stuff that you need will be available within the city. Is there a charter which kind of says we want to reinvest back in the city, we want to keep the money in here, so more money gets spent and kept in the local economy? So if next time you come round, if you can present a economic figure of actually how impactful is the platform within the city, and how much money actually stays in here, and whether we can kind of increase that. I think that's important to know that, because you're a significant player in terms of that, and with the amount of housing stock that you've got, it's not an easy job. And you know, looking at in your shoes, the costs are enormous, and you've got to do the best if you can. But obviously, a lot of these issues that have been historically that haven't been addressed and are now coming forward, because we've as a council and certainly our group have kind of realised that actually there's a need, because we as local councillors from all parties are the front line regarding the flow of those issues, and we get it in the neck quite literally, and we have to pass that on to you to make sure that goes. So don't feel that the pressure will will ease off anymore. It'll probably be increased, but as long as that makes you stronger and better and be able to perform, we feel that you've done your job, then we've done ours. So really, really appreciate your time here. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to stay if you want, have a break outside if you want to stay on, or you feel free, you can take each people's details and contact them at a later date. But we can send councillor details on towards you to pick up those individual issues. That'll be okay.
We'll leave if that's okay with you, and then we'll get in touch with everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, it's been great.
Okay. Agenda item 6, Gorse Hill and Albury Mount Nature Reserve. Update report.
Can I just say a few words before Warwick presents this one? Is that okay? Chair, some members who've been here for a few years will recall that when we set the budget for 2021-22, a number of projects came through the budget setting process. And those projects had an indicative capital amount linked to them. That wasn't funding approved. That was just an indicative value that was set against those projects. We're now some sort of 12, 18 months on from those projects having gone through the system, and we're conscious that we needed to bring an update back on some of them. So for this committee, you recall this project that was proposed by Councillor Stanley I believe Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Geraghty proposed the Coleman Gardens Institute project as well. We were hoping to bring that report to this committee, but we've had to defer that item so we can bring that back in November or the next committee cycle. But it's important for us to keep you as members updated as to where we are with these, because otherwise you'll start thinking what's happened to them. So Warwick's going to present a brief update on this one tonight. Elbury Mount tonight, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yes, it's about Gorse Hill, specifically Elbury Mount Nature Reserve. It was part of budget setting, as Lloyd said. It was a request for changes to the existing entrances and fencing that could reduce or even deter future antisocial behaviour at the local nature reserve. Local nature reserve is made up of 2 hills, which is the highest point in Worcester City. Elbury Mount contains an underground Severn Trent water reserve, and visitors to that local nature reserve obviously benefit from the amazing views from the city, but also the wildlife reserve itself. Throughout 2021, it was identified that neighbours that back onto the Elbury Mount reserve itself suffered from antisocial behaviour. The police have recorded 10 incidents of illegal use of motorbikes on the access road, and stones and other things were being terrorising the local neighbours. As a result of that initial response and request, officers multi-agency approach to contact survey residents, managed to reach 120 properties and got 49 responses from that, summarising police attendance or visibility in the area, motorbike use. There was a mobile camera placed on one of the far entrances, and noticed that resolved one of the issues in the area, which is about youth ASB at the time, and more references to motorbikes and youth congregating another entrance on Eskdale Close. So it just happened that there was a smart water project going on at the same time in the ward, so a lot of resident engagement was carried out at that time as well. But specific responses to that survey, we met with the West Mercia Police Design Act crime officer and came up with the following identified actions that could be carried out: review of the speed of the cars along Elbury Park Road, motorbikes, looking at various entrances on the nature reserve, review of certain areas of vegetation management to either open up visibility or visibility into entrances onto the nature reserve so people could see what's happening beyond the entrance, but also looking at isolated litter spots, and then Severn Trent specifically about their maintenance. So we've made a certain amount of progress. Since this report, we've heard from County Highways to say that they haven't got the intelligence or incident numbers to consider traffic calming on Elbury Park Road. But we are obviously looking with Safer Neighbourhood teams to see with residents whether we could look at community safety projects along that road. The cause of the Eskdale Youth ASB was a congregation point with a large tree trunk, so this was moved to another site to use as a community bench on another site where they wanted people to sit and hang out. Then local residents were supported to deliver litter picks to clean up the area. Severn Trent officers responded to immediate maintenance issues, but we're still waiting for them to come up with a programme of works to their assets. And so the outstanding items is one particular entrance off Elbury Park Road onto the site itself to look at options to put a new gate in that would slow motorbikes down, but obviously enable people to access the site. We're working with Severn Trent, West Mercia Police to look at options around speeding, and our environmental operatives are looking to improve the visibility on the entrances to the site where vegetation is causing the obstruction, and then to maintain certain areas to make them more open and natural light in for people to be able to use the site and feel safer. So recommendations are that you note the contents of the report and note that further reports will be presented in conversation with Chair and Vice Chair about next steps.
Yes, thank you, Warwick. Are there any speakers on this item? Councillor Amos, Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Just really a comment. I mean, I think this is an excellent project. It's a good report. It's sensible, imaginative, so I would fully support it. Just one comment I want to make, though, is I did know about the project because Councillor Stanley, the local member, discussed it with me some time ago as it happened, so I did know about it. And I think he's put in a great amount of work, and I think this is important because this project has come from somewhere. And my understanding is that he's put a lot of time and effort in to progress the project. Paragraph 3.9 refers to the sponsor member. I'm assuming that's Councillor Stanley, because it doesn't actually name him. But I think all I'm saying really is I think he should be given credit for a lot of the work that's happened on this. It hasn't come out of thin air. And where a member has been involved in his local ward actively, I think they should be given a bit of credit for it.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Councillor, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, it's just I never name officers, so I didn't think it was necessarily appropriate. But you're right, James Stanley has driven it and worked, with the Smart Wards project as well. Literally, feet on the street type thing to support. So yeah, very very appreciative of his input.
Councillor Cooper and then Councillor Alter.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to note that I would support any scheme that has a gate that is accessible to wheelchair users. I've seen lots of barriers that are not compliant with the Equality Act, and I would hate for us to be non-inclusive. If that could be noted, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The existing gap is narrower than DDA, but obviously we won't do anything to restrict access even further. No, absolutely enable access. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was just going to say, Councillor Cooper will be aware of the work that we've carried out in the last sort of year around equality. So, that's absolutely at the front, right and centre of our minds and everything we try and do. So, just to reassure around that.
Thank you. Councillor Alter.
Yes, so me and James Stanley spent a lot of time in Albury Mount, and the back of that we have a Cunward Avenue, which follows that round, and that's where the anti-social behaviour is going on, as you know. The issue is that we've got a lot of alleys in between Cunward Avenue, and at night time, a lot of residents are complaining that drug dealing's going on in those alleys and they don't want to put a stop, and that's why we was putting, if we can put gates in those alleys at certain times, because it's in the night time there's a lot of drug dealing going on and the motorbikes going up and down up Cunward Avenue. And the reserve is obviously when they go up the fields by the Severn Trent where you mentioned, there are a lot of youths hanging around there, and we had complaints that people picking pebbles, stones and thrown over there, as you're aware of cars being broken screens or windows. And so we need, obviously that's why me and Jamie spent a lot of time and spoke to a lot of the residents, and they come out with all these issues, and that's why we wanted to put that right for them.
Yeah, that was what initiated it. Touchwood, the ASB hasn't come back since we was consulted. But we are aware that it's seasonal, so potentially we're not ruling anything out. Obviously, just reinforce 101, contact the police with any instances, just to get those recorded, and definitely support communities if it starts arising again.
Yes, even now. The issue is still ongoing matter, and then there's the residents saying the police obviously haven't caught them yet. Obviously, when they're throwing stones over that side or hitting someone's car, they do a run and the police can't find them. That's why we was thinking to put cameras in that area, to stop drug dealing as well as all antisocial behaviours going on?
Yeah, to be honest, we haven't been told that the ASB is still going on. Obviously, the community survey went ahead, so we're not aware, but please let us know of the issue so we can pick that back up. Working with Severn Trent to reduce the access to those stones at the top. But no, to be honest, no, we weren't aware that it was continuing because we literally weren't receiving the reports, whether that's to the police or via the police or directly from residents. So yeah, absolutely, let us know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? No? Are we happy to note the report then in point 1.1 and 1.2? All in favour? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 7, Community Safety Partnership Annual Update. Warwick?
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Crime and Disorder Act requires all responsible authorities to develop a strategy to tackle crime and disorder in their local area. Responsible authorities include local authorities, police, fire, rescue authorities, and integrated care system. The City Council is an active member of South Worcestershire Community Safety Partnership, which was established in 2003, and this covers Malvern Hills, Worcester City, and Wychavon Council's administrative boundaries. So, community safety partnerships for members' benefits are multi-agency meetings for the purposes to reduce crime, fear of crime, antisocial behaviour, drug and alcohol misuse, and reducing reoffending. The crime and disorder regulations place the statutory duty on community safety partnerships to produce an annual community safety strategic assessment and then a plan based on that assessment. So if I can just, direct councillors to Appendix 4, which was the non-public document. You'll see this is a police and crime analyst provision report identifying that strategic assessment for the community safety partnership to be able to review and drive its action from. I won't go through the detail on that, but obviously happy to take questions at a later date. And then you'll see in Appendix 1 on the report the action plan that was to deliver on that. And then on the action plan, you'll see that it's split into themes. These are the themes adopted by or created by West Mercia Police around safer homes, safer people and safer roads. And on 3.3 for 3.4, 3.5 and 3.6. You can sort of see the types of crimes that fit under those headings. Sorry, you're busily flipping back between the pages as I'm sort of taking you through this, but there's a lot of information, obviously, supplementary to the report. In addition to, or whilst delivering on this action plan, in 2022, the Home Office set out a new statutory guidance on serious violence duty and said that the responsibility of that would fall to the community safety partnerships. That's still to be decided or defined on how that is to be delivered, but it's through partnerships that's being coordinated, and our response is being coordinated. Throughout the year of this report that you're reviewing, 22-23, Worcester City Communities Committee receives quarterly updates, performance scorecard report, which identifies the total number of crimes each year and the total number of ASB. So for the year that we're reviewing, that was 10,817, which was 682 instances of crime more than the previous year. We're told that an element of this is a contribution of the way West Mercia officers were told to revise how they're reporting crime. Previously, some incidents would have been recorded as ASB, but the Home Office has given them guidance to say that where an ASB is impacting on people more in a higher level, then it should be a crime rather than ASB. So that would have naturally inflated the crime numbers reported as officers were recording slightly differently. So the Community Safety Partnership covers the 3 districts. Then each district will have its own arrangements for more localised multi-agency reviews and programme of work. For Worcester, that's the Safer Worcester Partnership. That is hosted or administered by the City Council. As you can see in 4.2, it met 4 times during the period of review, and you can sort of see the subjects that were reported into that meeting again in 4.2. At the same time, serious organised crime was reviewed 3 times at multi-agency meetings throughout the year, and that again was at a South Worcestershire level, and supported or more targeted would have been the Worcester City multi-agency meetings, which also happened 4 times during the year. And that specifically looks at identified vulnerable people in the community with risk management plans and particular complex antisocial behaviour issues, where they'd look at action plans specifically around those issues. And go on to section 5 with the funding. West Mercia Police and Crime Commissioner allocates funding for the South Worcestershire Community Safety Partnership to allocate. There's a breakdown of that allocation in 5.1. The allocation very much was in support of the action plan where required. So you can sort of see the schemes set out and detailed of allocations and what they were to deliver during the year. Some of that funding is top sliced because it's regional work, so that'll be the partnership Allen lists, the integrated offender management, and the hate crime and the Crime Stoppers work. That was all West Mercia wide, but the rest are particular South Worcestershire focused projects. So just to go through you'll see in section 6 then the projects of intervention that were supported through the South Worcestershire Community Safety Partnership. So you've got the Dawn project, which is specifically about domestic abuse. There's housing for victims of domestic abuse delivered through the local authorities. There were domestic homicide reviews carried out as an unfortunate arising of incidents through the previous years. The Worcester Street Pastor project, which is based in the city at the nighttime economy, was supported, which is a volunteer initiative, but they're paying for the coordinator to coordinate volunteers. And then there were certain safe and sound projects around acquisitive crime, so like cycle marking, smart water project as mentioned previously about protecting properties from burglary, and then there were personal safety alarms. This year coincided with the Homes for Ukraine scheme, so a lot of safeguarding referrals and visits were made as part of the during the year in preparation and once families had arrived. And then we started a new Safer Schools Community Day in each of the senior schools, looking at risks for young people around antisocial behaviour, fire safety, water safety, and those are now ingrained in the annual work programme. And then we have youth intervention areas where we're funded by the County Council to deliver mentoring group sessions and proactive patrolling. And then there's the area of antisocial behaviour, which is vast, but you can sort of see how we've tried to work with councillors through ward briefings in partnership with the police to look at particular issues based on crime data, but also live data from councillors to identify particular projects, and those are identified in 6.31. And then we've given you a couple of examples of the ASB issues that we've worked with agencies during the year to combat. And then just a reminder that there's in 6.37, there's the use, during this year we increased to 6 mobile CCTV cameras, which we can deploy in streets, neighbourhoods outside the city centre in response to identified community concerns. We work with the Westminster Police to identify the priority of those, because obviously there are all sorts of challenges over those resources, and those are all 6 are currently deployed across Worcester. And then 2 other areas to focus in on in this report are the community trigger process, which is where an individual has felt that the responsible agency or agencies hasn't dealt with their antisocial behaviour, and they can identify 3 separate occurrences of antisocial behaviour which haven't been resolved. They can then legitimately call on the council to conduct a community trigger or community antisocial behaviour review, which is a recognised process that's supported through South Worcestershire Community Safety Partnership. And then finally, public space protection orders, which come through this committee. There are 3 existing PSPOs with the acronym. One is dog control, the second is alcohol in public open spaces, and the third is the city centre one, which is made up of dangerous cycling and skateboarding, intentionally feeding seagulls, and aggressive begging. All 3 are due for review next year, so we're planned to carry out consultation in autumn with the public on their perceptions of antisocial behaviour. And then just finally, review performance and impact. The Community Safety Partnership is due to meet next week, where they'll review the action plan that you've seen this evening and propose a new action plan for the next 2 years and set its priorities based on that. It's a lot of information, apologies to go through, but willing to take questions.
Thank you. Just give me a second. Got Councillor Lawrence, Tessera, Amos and Lawrence and okay. Just before I bring those in, Warwick, I mean, a key part of this strategy is within the cities around the community safety partnership and the local antisocial behaviour community safety team in terms of that. And what's the split of resources between the 2? Who funds who? And how much responsibility do we have to deliver on those priorities? And what's the funding like for the coming years?
So funding to the City Council. So we don't receive any direct funding for staff with community safety. So the council provides that. We have a supervisor and an officer, and obviously a part of my time as team manager. And we've, as I mentioned previously, we have third-party funding from the county to deliver youth intervention work. So what was that? Sorry, what was the other question?
Okay, no, that's fine. No, just that's fine. I'll come back to that at a later stage. I've got Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to 640 dog control, I'm getting regular reports from residents concerned about loose dogs, and I was wondering. I know you've just said, and I'm quite pleased to hear it's coming up for review next year, but it's a matter of sort of quite concerned that dogs are actually on city council land as well that are not being controlled, and they've got no command of recall on these dogs. And a lady had her dog and herself menaced, and somebody else then commented that they'd been bitten by this actual. They'd had clothing torn by this actual dog. So is there anything we can do in the interim on that? And I'd also like to know what the dog exclusion areas are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are you calling for a mandatory dog licensing scheme?
I'm not sure how to deal with it, but is there a possibility of adding into this if the dog is not if it's off its lead and it's not got recall, is it out of control? Is it now considered an out of control dog, and then can we report it with another method?
Chair, can I suggest it's quite a detailed question and probably requires a detailed answer. So I think my preference would be if perhaps Warwick picks that up offline with Councillor Lawrence. Is that okay?
Is that okay, Councillor Lawrence? Yeah. Councillor De Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. A knife amnesty bin nearly came to Warndon and then didn't because it wasn't asked for in time, apparently. Are there going to be any more opportunities to have that? Because I think it would be quite useful. And the only other thing I wanted to ask was, is there within the City Council a safeguarding officer that can be contacted when one has concerns about somebody's well-being, if you think somebody is perhaps being subjected to domestic abuse in their home? You know, whenever we're canvassing and knock doors, sometimes alarm bells might be raised within yourself, but is there someone to contact at the council about that, to investigate?
Tom?
Thank you.
You have to give the safeguarding officer his
Yeah, there is. And so I'm the lead safeguarding point of contact at the authority, and you'll note in the weekly agenda items for members, it's been circulated today. There's key contact details for all relevant people within the authority of who to pass those concerns on to.
Just to pick up on the knife bin, certainly very interested in supporting councillors in particular projects in various wards. There is, with the serious violence duty, an opportunity to work with the police around particular projects where there are, again, it's got to be driven by the information from the community, but more than happy to support the community in projects. So yeah, we can look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Amos?
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 questions. If I just read them out, I'm sure Mr Neil can deal with them one by one. The first question is 3.5, safer people. What concerns my constituents is not high-level crime, it's not murder, robbery, it's antisocial behaviour, vandalism, graffiti, all this kind of stuff, people's behaviour. So it just reads there, antisocial behaviour sort of last on the list, you know, as though it's an add-on. For me, it's central, because that's what's central to my constituents. The second question is paragraph 3.9, statistics, police statistics. Can we please get away from this irritating habit, because it gets on my nerves? Every time crime statistics go up, it's simply because more people are reporting the crime, or it's the way in which the police record the crime. So that's why the statistics are going up. Nothing to do with that crime's increasing. But then when the statistics go down, the police take credit for the fact that they've gone on top of crime and crime is going down. So the police are responsible for when crime goes down, but they're not responsible when crime goes up, because it's all to do with the reporting and recording statistics. I don't believe a word of it. The fact is the figures are up because crime is up. And I think we should be more honest and admit that. But the police really need to stop this kind of subterfuge. Well, it's, you know, there's no more crime, it's just the figures. But when it goes down, it's you know, because of their brilliant efforts. It just gets on my nerves, Chair, because I've seen so many reports like this, and they always say the same thing when the crime goes up or the statistics go down. The paragraph 6.31, which is my third point, the briefings for ward councillors. I remember I attended the last one, and I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, that the last point, officer enforcement of parking outside of schools, was me, and it was to do with this endemic problem. In fact, it's so wide now, it's almost a pandemic problem, because every school seems to have this issue. And we have a mobile CCTV enforcement camera van, and there will be ructions before long, Chair, because I understand there are moves to try and take it away. And it's working, very popular, might not make money, but not everything is about making money. So perhaps Mr. Neil could just update us on that. And the final question is public space protection orders. As officers will know, I've supported all of these very vigorously, particularly the one on cycling in the pedestrianised city centre and goals. Now, the problem with PSPOs is they're great things, so we can pass any ones we like. The question of enforcing them. The question of enforcing them, because if they're going to be reviewed next year, what bothers me is the officers are going to come up with reports and say, well, no problem, no offences, no fines, no nothing. But of course, if you don't enforce anything, there won't be any statistics to show that it's working or that it's not working. I mean, there was a supine police officer walking, and I collared him. Two cyclists they sped straight past him in a pedestrian just outside Marks and Spencer's. Two, and he let them go. So I collared him and said, was he going to enforce the law or not? And he said, oh, well, no, he couldn't do anything about it because they were mobile. I said, well, of course, people cycling a bike normally are mobile. You know, it was absolutely supine to hear him say that. And he said, anyway, it's not for him to enforce the law. I said, well, who does then? So I raised that, Chair, because I was really quite angry because we spent some time in argument and officers put effort in to getting the PSPO to stop cycling because it is dangerous and it's selfish and it's increasing. And it's increasing because there's no enforcement. Gulls, well, what can I say? I've said so much over the years about gulls. A woman, you'll love this. 2 days ago on Worcester Station, there was a pigeon and there was a gull in the background. And this elderly lady must have been brain dead because she was trying to feed the pigeon. She was trying to feed the pigeon, but not the gull. So she was throwing food. Of course, the gull swooped down and took all the food. She did it 2 or 3 times, and then realized the pigeon wasn't going to get any food. So she then got up and moved around nearer to the pigeon to throw more food for this pigeon, but the gull came down, and actually it was getting pretty close. I did advise her, could you stop please feeding these flying rats? Because we have a problem in Worcester. But the point is, Chair, the only reason I raised that sort of semi-comically is because there is a real problem in both of those issues that's not being enforced. And I'm concerned that the reviews next year will say there isn't a problem and we'll get rid of them.
Chair, if I pick up points 3 and 4, I'll do them backwards. Point 4, Councillor Amos's comments are duly noted, and we'll make sure that the reports that we bring back on that subject are balanced. And if enforcement has gone down or has gone up, we will provide the reason for why that is. So rest assured, members will have a good opportunity to debate that. Point 3, the mobile enforcement vehicle. We operated on a trial basis, the mobile enforcement vehicle, at the request of Worcestershire County Council. That trial period is coming to the end, and we will report our findings back to Worcestershire County Council. So I would direct Councillor Amos to take his vigorous comments to his colleagues at County.
I think it's safe to say, though, Lloyd, that there is probably consensus around the table in terms of keeping that fund and that enforcement going across schools, across our city. There's a real need for it, so I certainly support that.
That's very helpful, Chair, because I think, I mean, this affects as a pilot in my division, because if it went wrong, they would blame me. But as it happened, it was very popular, and of course, other schools quite rightly want it, and I'm very happy to lend it. But because it doesn't make money, you know, it's under threat. But all these things can't make money. You can't provide a service and expect it to make money. You know, there are wider public issues. And so I hope this council will be proactive, Chair, in supporting it, not just providing data, because we know how you can abuse and ignore and twist data. Can this council please proactively support it? Because it's an imaginative a solution to an endemic pandemic problem that is increasing, getting worse in this city. So we need to enforce it. I mean, I'm having words with, already had them with county, but if this council could say, it's good, we want to keep it, that would be very helpful. Sorry, Mr. Neil's going to deal with our numbers 2 and 1.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. So the police stats, I think unanimously around the table, we've decided to drop that KPI because it doesn't really mean anything. And so you'll see that your KPIs for this year are different. What I can reassure you, hopefully, is that we attend South Worcestershire Police tasking meetings once a month, and they are looking at the detail of crime, and when they see trends or difference increases, they're absolutely focusing on that area of crime, especially if it's really high harm From my witnessing, from their attention to the stats, they take notice of those stats, even though you might get a more benign report coming to Communities Committee based on total numbers, because that you can't really give you the nuance with those. So to reassure you, we're not reporting on total crime anymore. No, but I'm just trying to reassure you that they are looking at the detail. But that total crime number doesn't help us. You're quite right. And then point one, it wasn't in priority order, that list. I assure you. Obviously, where we as local authority officers can make more impact on community lives is through tackling antisocial behaviour. So you're quite right. It is important to us as a local authority.
So in the next meeting, that will be top of that list.
I'm going to have to make sure, yes, next year amend the list. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrenson.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding item 9 on page 10 of the South Worcestershire Community Safety Partnership Action Plan, 2 questions. What were the crimes that were linked to travelling, and what does OCG stand for?
So OCG is organised crime group. So the travelling crimes tend to be organised crime coming up and down the motorways. Or through rail networks and that sort of thing. I haven't been fast enough to get the action plan up in front of me. But that would have been where most of the focus would have been on. It would have been organised crime. I think there was a lot of, during that year, there was either on the overlap with that year or to the previous year, there was a lot of work on the junction service stations and to do with people being smuggled or raising awareness of activities going on those car parks. So that's what it means, that travelling crime, rather than any other connotation that might sort of have.
Super, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in reference to the railway level crossings, and particularly the closure of the Cays crossing in my ward of St John's, where I did find myself at odds with some of my constituents who didn't agree with my supporting the closure of this. Just this line here where it says, officers are working with Network Rail to carry out the order whilst the work is ongoing, etc. So do I assume that the order has not yet been carried out? And therefore, I suppose the question is, why is it taking so long? Because it was agreed by this committee back in June, so it's 13 months ago now, actually. So when's that actually going to be finally agreed? And secondly, most importantly, what's been the impact? Has it had the desired effect of reducing antisocial behaviour around that particular crossing of the railway line?
So if I answer the second question first, which might actually help frame the first question, answer the first question. So yes, the incidences reported through Network Rail and incidents on the railways track have dropped away. I'm not aware of any incidents that they're reporting to me. What we found is that the structures that they've put up in place, the Cays entrance off Bromyard Road is a solid galvanised palisade fence, which means that no one can access that alleyway to maintain it. And I don't know if you've noticed recently the state of the path leading up to it and beyond it. So, and then the far end was Harris Fence. Fence panel, very temporary in structure, and that has been damaged several times. And what's happened now is people have pushed through the City Council post and wire fence to get around the back, and so there is now antisocial behaviour happening on public green space, hidden out of view because the footpath's closed. So to answer the first question is staff turnover at Network Rail. It was quite difficult to get progress. Because quite rightly we would be looking for Network Rail to pay for both officer time to date and carry out the consultations, the legal orders, but also we wanted them to commit to paying for improved gating of that footpath with maintenance access so we could keep maintaining it. And then, so that's what we've been talking about. They've now got purchase orders for The pass works, so we've invoiced on that. They've given us purchase orders for the new, to put the PSPOs in place, put the orders in place. What we're waiting for now actually is our officers to confirm the costs of putting the new gates in. Once that's decided and they've gone in, then we can just, there wasn't any point putting the order in place when we hadn't got those reassurances from Network Rail. And it's you can do a maximum of 3 years. So for your buck, Councillor Lamb, the longer that we use the temporary rights of way order, the longer your closure will be for your 3-year period. So that's what we're working on, and to secure our local nature reserve to the side of the footpath. My colleagues are recommending some Section 106 money to change the nature of that fencing, which obviously we can get reports to you on. So that will go side by side, so that would be a secure entrance. Re-secure that boundary.
Okay, do we have any more comments? No? Okay, can I take the recommendations as read then, 1.1 and 1.2? All those in favour? Agreed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Warwick. Okay, we have agenda item number 8, Q1 performance report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep the introduction brief, but this is the new performance scorecards. The first time we've reported on the new projects and performance indicators to this committee that were approved back in March. In terms of projects and actions, Lloyd earlier referenced the committee capital projects, which is indicated as a red indicator, and that's due to the outstanding report that we brought back to the committee later this year. In relation to the performance indicators, rather than running through them one by one, just by broad reference really to a number of the red performance indicators which are highlighted, particularly around homelessness. So there's reference to the percentage of people owed a main housing duty, number of households in temporary accommodation, families in temporary accommodation, and families in bed and breakfast for over 6 weeks. In a broad overview, there is further detail and commentary against each of those performance indicators, but the reason for those indicators not being at target is broadly due to the availability of affordable housing and the ability to be able to move people on in a speedy fashion, as we would hope, and that essentially contributes to those indicators appearing red on the scorecard this evening. I'm happy to leave it there and take any comments or questions about any specific element of the scorecard.
Thank you. Can I put it out to the floor then? Councillor Lawrenson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, a couple of questions. One regarding the private sector condition survey on page 3, and one regarding tennis, which is covered on pages 18 and 19. Can I ask both questions at the same time, or shall I do one at a time? I'll just blurt them both out and then take it from there. So page 3, so I'm pleased that in light of recent questions I've personally had about private sector housing, that a private sector housing condition survey is being commissioned. However, the original date for commissioning that survey was over 2 years ago. So I'm just wondering why there's been such a delay. I imagine COVID's had something to do with it. But that's my first question. Why has there been a delay in commissioning that survey? Tennis, pages 18, 19. So if my stats are right, the take-up of free tennis has increased by 63% over the past 2 years. In the same period, the take-up of paid tennis has reduced by 45%. So therefore, while acknowledging that the council's fragile budget, which can be largely attributed to the removal of government funding, shouldn't we recognise that there's an appetite for free tennis in Worcester, and encourage more people to participate. And just to finish that point / question, the current target for free tennis is 220. That's a fifth of what the actual participation is. So there's clearly an appetite for free tennis. Shouldn't we be encouraging that instead of trying to charge people?
Yeah, just before you answer, Lloyd, I mean, I think, yeah, thanks, Councillor Lawrenson. I think you're a bit late to the party on that one. I think Councillor Udall and Lamb have been all over that. I mean, I know you're reiterating the point.
If I'm echoing what's already, I
of course,
appreciate
yeah.
I remember Councillor Udall mentioning it, and apologies, Councillor Lamb, but I'm just responding to the performance report in front of me.
Absolutely,
So,
no,
yeah.
absolutely fine. And obviously, I'm keen to hear the answer as well on that one.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. In terms of the stock condition survey, you're absolutely right. It's a contribution as a result of delays due to COVID, getting it operational, and some staffing resources within the local authority. We are acting as the lead on behalf of each of the 6 district councils in the procurement of the stock condition survey. Doing so enables us to achieve greater value for money. So there are additional complexities with getting each of the 6 district councils together around the table. But I'm really pleased that we're able to progress that, and it's out for procurement at the moment.
Just in respect of tennis, Chair, I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to answer the question definitively, but obviously when we refurbished our tennis courts, there was always an initial provision of free tennis. I think members raised their concerns, Councillor Lamb and Councillor Udall, and therefore the council invested some more money into free tennis. So the council are already subsidising the provision of those courts. And obviously the council is in a financially challenging position. So to invest any more in that would be a member decision. What I can say is that there has been a period where I think the tennis development manager, I think the post is called, hasn't been filled. That post has now been filled again more recently. I know Alan New, when he gets back from leave, is due to meet with Freedom and that individual about how we can look to maximise usage across the courts, both free and paid for. So at some stage, Chair, we'll be able to brief you and Vice Chair on that subject.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, we should do everything we can in terms of utilising that space for the purpose that was originally built for. But if the appetite isn't there and it's not being taken, that is space that could be used for other sports. I think that's, we can repurpose maybe some of that if studies reveal that, the uptake of tennis isn't, with the amount of investment that we're putting in, it's not getting the return that we require or the response that we require in terms of the numbers, then there is a space there that could be utilised for other sports. And I know there have been calls from that side of the river in terms of basketball, amongst other things, in terms of that, as there is a real need. But yeah, absolutely valid question, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Lewin.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see the new data for the number of families in B&B accommodation over 6 weeks. It was something that I raised before, and the number of families in temporary accommodation. Obviously, the data is reflecting a completely tragic situation. The long-term impact for children to be in temporary accommodation is well recognised as having a long-term impact in lots of ways on their futures. And nationally, I saw a statistic yesterday, families with 3 or more children, 40% of these families live in poverty and are at risk of homelessness. As a city council, we clearly need more temporary accommodation, not putting them into B&Bs. And I really just want to know what we're going to do about it, whether I know we heard from Platform earlier, they're doing more housing. We really need to see, I love the fact that you've got a 0 target, that's exactly where we should be. And I can see that you're making some moves, but obviously I know this is a symptom of national policy, but what can we do as a city council? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a long-held recognition that we are in a dire situation as regards that, and the amount of cost that it's costing us as a city council in terms of putting that, not to mention the psychological damage and the damage to families that it's actually doing. I know James and I have been trying to work for income generation solutions in terms of trying to solve that, to try to get property on the market. The reality, it's a really tough situation. We have got property here which has been taken by outside providers, as you know, in terms of that. So it's a really difficult situation. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely. We recognise the impact of being in temporary accommodation for any period of time, particularly where there's families, and particularly if that does relate to bed and breakfast accommodation rather than it being self-contained. One of our corporate projects is around increasing the provision of temporary accommodation, and that is one of the actions reported through the committee. And we have a number of things that we're looking at to try and address that. We have a unit of council-owned property which is currently used for an alternative use. So what we're seeking to do is to bring that back into use for self-contained accommodation for families, in recognition of the need, which we are aware is the case. The number of households with children in temporary accommodation does fluctuate quite significantly, but what we are seeing is an increasing trend generally. So we do recognise that, and considering a whole range of measures. So I'd like to offer my assurance to you, and I can provide further detail around some of those individual measures that we're putting in place to increase the provision of self-contained accommodation.
And I also feel actually here there's real opportunity in terms of obviously your remit as well, the Chair of Planning, in terms of what we can do in terms of actually looking at the landscape in terms of the stock that we've got and how we can repurpose that to make sure that we can make it, for those first-time families. So I think it's going to be, a joint approach across the council from each department, and understand actually how our policy decisions affect each and every, out on the front line, and in terms of a very real one. So, yeah, really valid point.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Under the number of affordable housing completions, I mean, I think I've raised this before, but it is disappointing to see that the number of affordable housing completed in 2022-23 is below the target of 200. Now, I'm assuming the 200 target is based on some kind of needs assessment of the city, how many affordable houses we need. So it is disappointing to see that we are below that, considerably below that, and there's a downward trend on last year. And I realise in the kind of narrative there are some explanations for the reasons, but this is an ongoing issue, that we're simply not building enough houses in this city that people can afford. I was doing some leafleting literally 2 days ago in University Park. It's not an area I know that well because it's in Bedwardine, but I was wandering around and I looked at these houses, these brand new houses, and new houses being built, it's growing like topsy. And I looked at the house and I thought, these aren't affordable houses. These aren't houses that ordinary people in Worcester will be able to buy. These are sort of executive homes. These are homes that are going to make Worcester into a kind of dormitory city, if you like. So, in a perfect world, I'd love to see a situation where Worcester City Council is again a provider of affordable housing, but we are where we are. We are an enabler. But I suppose my question is what can we do? What powers do we have? What levers can we pull in order to raise this number of houses, the number of affordable housing completion to a better level, so we can reach our targets, and those targets aren't the most ambitious in the world in the first place. So what can we do?
Well, I'll give an answer before the officers give an answer, and they can, say whatever they want after me. I mean, I think there has to be a red line in the council to hold developers to say, if there's a 20% limit on affordable building houses, you have to deliver 20%. You understand? That's the key bottom line of it, and we as a council has to hold them to account for it. You understand? There's no wriggle room. There's no extenuating circumstances. If you've got planning permission on the basis of a certain percentage, you deliver that percentage, and we do whatever within our power to be able to do that. Obviously, there are the landscape changes in terms of that, and there may be other factors, but we have to hold our ground in terms of that. I mean, in terms of the other projects that are coming forward through income generation, which Kevin Moore is kind of working on, there are smaller schemes. They're never going to solve the problem that we've got in there, and massive schemes are very few and far between that with a single blow are going to solve all our city's problems. It's a long game, it's a slow game, but it's a game that we can slowly chip away at as long as we're all united and committed in terms of achieving that.
Yeah, Tom will probably want to come in after me. The stock answer is obviously we developed the housing enabling strategy an action plan, and so you as members can hold us to account for progressing that, and we'll report back on that, I think, on a 6-monthly basis to committee. The problem we face in the city is not a city issue, it's a national issue. We were only talking to senior colleagues in a registered provider today, and you know, they said, don't worry, you're not unique. This is a challenge posed up and down the country. So Councillor Riaz mentions the importance of planning compliant sites in respect of affordability provision, and you know, we are meeting regularly with registered providers, those that currently operate in the city and those that don't. We are trying to find out what best practice looks like elsewhere across the country, because we can't be the only city that is struggling with this. What are other cities doing to try and deal with the issue? And we're challenging ourselves internally to think about what we can do as well. And just as an anecdote, really, you know, we were talking to the colleagues today around sort of inner city centre sites, and one of the challenges they raised with us is car parking, and the comment that the county council will want to ensure planning compliant sites that have provision for car parking. But if you're putting in provision for car parking, that's taking space away from other things. So it's a really simple thing, but part of our enabling role could be we have 14 car parks. You know, would you like to use some of our car parking spaces, you know, through an agreement, which frees up some more site for your housing site? So it's things like that we need to get better at looking at and really try and get under the skin of what the art of the possible is. But I don't know whether Tom wants to.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing really additional to add other than it is a very complex environment and there's lots of elements that interplay with one another which do make it very challenging. As I sort of outlined in terms of the demand on the housing register, the need for affordable housing, we feel that daily, and we see how acute that is. So it's absolutely the top priority for us within the housing service to see more delivery of affordable housing. So it is something that we are very active in seeking to do. We are reliant on partners to support us with that delivery. And I suppose the last comment is just around in terms of our commitment to doing so. We're investing in additional resource within the service to focus solely on the delivery of affordable housing. So we're currently going through the recruitment process for that, for a new post specifically dedicated to this area of work.
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, it's a stain on my conscience and a stain on the council's conscience, you know, and I do have sleepless nights about the problems that we face sometimes in terms of the gravity of it, and how I'm charged with overseeing this, and you know, how do I make a dent in this? You know, it does affect you. Those that reflect all of us have come, you know, represent our various constituencies, and you know, have an overall duty to the sense and well-being of the city. And when you look at it in that terms, and the duty that we've got and how we're making progress, it is scary sometimes of the challenge, the level of challenge that we face. It's not easy for us, you know, and we've got a heavy burden on ourselves, and hopefully collectively we can solve that situation. Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment in the light of things you and others have said. I think with this problem that we're talking about, homelessness and affordable housing, frankly, there isn't a solution, because what you're trying to do, well, all of us are trying to do, is put a quart into a pint pot. And while it's radical to say it, Worcester is probably reaching the point where it's full. So you're not going to get the land, and you're not going to get the type of housing to meet this demand, because the demand is endless. but the supply isn't. And the economics, simple economics, that's why you've got the problem. So, but there are three things I think we need to consider, and it is radical, but that's probably why they won't be considered. When I travel into Birmingham, which is something I don't do too often because I find it utterly depressing, but there's an awful lot of derelict land as you go into Birmingham, loads and loads and loads of it. In fact, most of Birmingham seems to be derelict on the outskirts, and it's near public transport and it's near roads. You know, so we need to consider this not just in terms of South Worcestershire Development Plan, but on a wider scale. And the other thing that we've learned on planning is that we're building or trying to build rabbit hutches, places that are too small for a decent standard of living. We're not building family units because we're trying to squeeze as many in as we can. And as Mr. Griffiths pointed out, it raises the question of parking. I mean, are we assuming that all the families who come here are not going to be allowed to have a car for some reason? Because that's no way to bring up a family without a car. Well, what do the kids do? Where can you take them? And the final point is, and this is the biggest, this is just as big as the lack of housing, is the lack of infrastructure, by which I mean GP surgeries, I mean hospital places, roads, schools. So if you have more houses, Chair, these are the things you've got to have, in my opinion, before the housing comes in. But we don't put it before the housing comes in. We don't even put it in once the houses have been built. So this is why we have problems with health, education, and roads. So it's part of a much bigger problem. I don't know the answer. I think what I've said is probably the answer, but it won't be carried out because it's too radical. So I'm afraid we'll be discussing this next year.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, please. On page 5, I really welcome the minimum energy efficiency standards. I'm so pleased to see that in. I wondered how much the fines were for those 7 properties or 7 landlords. And secondly, I wondered if we're reporting on empty homes within the city and if there is a plan to get those back in use, please. Thank you.
Thank you through you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I'd have to check in terms of the individual fines against each of the individual properties. We do have a standardised approach to the issuing of fines and a process of establishing mitigating factors, etc., to how they're awarded. But if that's of useful information, I can provide that at a later date. In terms of empty homes, yeah, we're aware that empty homes is an issue and something that we're keen to get to grips with. I know it does come up periodically through committee. In terms of plans, we do have plans in place. Part of the challenge is that it sits within various different parts of the authority, and there's different legislation that sits within each of those functions as to what enforcement or activity can be undertaken to bring those properties back into use. We're due to undertake a project to actively engage with all of those empty properties that we're aware of, and it's certainly something that we can bring back through the committee in terms of how that's progressing. We know that it can be a frustration to members and members of the community. We do get inquiries about seemingly empty properties, but in terms of what we're able to do to bring those back into use does vary depending on the individual property. So yes, it is something we're aware of, something that we are trying to get to grips with, and we do have some plans in place to tackle that.
Chair, can I just add, just to reassure Councillor Cooper, so we have an internal problem property working group. So that's, as Tom says, officers from a number of services get together. We keep a list of empty properties, and that's based on a range of data that we've got at our disposal. And that list is in a priority order. So we're constantly working on the top few problem empty properties, each and every day. And I think it was last year or the year before, we brought into place a second planning enforcement officer as well, very much with a focus on those types of things. And the other thing to add is, I always forget the name, but we do have a council tax premium in place for this council for empty properties that have been empty longer than a certain amount of time as well.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments on this paper? No? Okay, can we take it as noted then, please? All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We don't have any other business, do we? No, that's fine. And item number 10, item involving the disclosure of exempt information